The evening sky over planet Reva was painted in soft orange light. 2 moons hung above the horizon, shining over the tall glass towers of Arvona City. Among those towers stood a quiet home, filled with the sound of machines humming and air filters breathing. Inside that home lived a young alien girl named Lyra. She had green skin, gentle eyes, and short silver hair that shimmered like morning frost. Her room was small but full of wonder. There were old books, glowing crystals, and most of all, a framed picture on the wall. The picture showed a human soldier in heavy armor. He stood in the middle of a burning battlefield, holding a rifle in one hand and a damaged flag in the other. Behind him were other soldiers, but his figure stood tallest. His face looked tired, yet there was something powerful in his eyes. The name written under the picture was Raoul. Lyra had found the picture in an old museum years ago. The guide had told her that Raoul was one of the soldiers who fought in the Great Void War, a battle between humans and machines long before her time. To Lyra, Raoul was not just a name in history. He was the symbol of courage. She often sat on her bed and looked at the picture, wondering how one human could stand so firm when the world around him was falling apart. Her people were peaceful by nature. They avoided conflict and used technology for comfort, not for battle. Lyra admired how different humans were. They were known for their strength of will, for never giving up, no matter how dark things became. Every night before sleeping, Lyra would look at Raul's picture and whisper softly, "I wish I could have seen your world." It was a simple habit, one that brought her calmness. Sometimes she even spoke to the picture as if Raul could hear her. She told him about her studies, her friends, and her small dreams. The picture never answered, but somehow she felt comforted. His eyes always seemed to look straight into hers, giving her a sense of safety she could not explain. One evening, a strong energy storm appeared above Arvona. The scientists had predicted it, saying that magnetic waves from a distant star might hit the planet's atmosphere. The people of Reva were told to stay inside their homes. The lights in the city flickered, and power lines glowed with blue sparks. Lyra sat near her window, watching lightning streak across the twin moons. It was beautiful, but frightening. The walls of her home trembled as thunder rolled through the sky. When the storm grew stronger, Lyra decided to stay in her room. She checked the machines around her to make sure everything was stable. Then she looked once again at the picture on her wall. For a moment, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. The light from outside was reflecting strangely on the glass frame. The soldier's armor seemed to shine brighter than usual. She stepped closer and saw something she had never seen before. The air around the picture was bending like heat waves. Lyra reached out her hand, thinking the glass might be hot, but she felt no heat. Instead, a soft vibration ran through her fingers, like touching moving air. The lights in her room flickered again. She pulled back, feeling her heart beat faster. A faint humming sound filled the room. It grew louder, matching the rhythm of the thunder outside. The glass on the frame began to shake. Then a flash of white light burst out, forcing her to close her eyes. When she opened them, the picture was no longer hanging on the wall. It had fallen onto the floor, but something else was there now. A shape stood in the middle of the room, glowing faintly in the blue stormlight. Lyra froze in shock. It was a man. He was tall, dressed in old armor that looked exactly like the one in the picture. The armor was covered in dust and scratches, and a broken plasma rifle hung from his shoulder. His breathing was heavy, and his eyes scanned the room with confusion and caution. Lyra stepped back, her voice trembling. "Who are you?" she asked, though deep down she already knew. The man turned toward her. His face was the same as the one she had seen 1,000 times on her wall. The strong jaw, the tired but sharp eyes, the scar across his left cheek. It was Raoul, the heroic human soldier who had lived and died centuries ago. Raoul looked around, confused by the glowing walls and floating lights in the room. He raised his weapon slightly, but then lowered it when he saw that Lyra was unarmed. "Where am I?" he asked in a rough voice. His tone carried the weight of command, but also confusion. Lyra stammered, trying to find words. "You are on planet Reva, in the city of Arvona. It is the year 4095. Raul's expression changed. His eyes widened slightly as he looked out the window and saw the twin moons. "That cannot be," he said slowly. "The last thing I remember was fighting near the wormhole gate. The sky was burning. The machines were closing in. We tried to stop the core from exploding." He looked down at his hands, seeing small sparks of blue light fading from his armor. The energy must have thrown me across time. Lyra's mind was spinning. A hero from history was standing in her room. You came from the past," she whispered. Raoul nodded slowly. "I should not be alive," he said quietly. "But I am. In this world. It feels so different." Lyra took a careful step closer. "Humans are legends now," she said. "There are very few left. Most worlds are peaceful. We live in harmony." Raoul looked at her with disbelief. "No war?" he asked. "No fighting at all?" She nodded. "Not anymore." For a long moment, Raoul said nothing. He took off his helmet and looked around her room. His eyes stopped at the fallen picture on the floor. He walked to it, lifted it carefully, and stared at it. "So that is how I was remembered," he said quietly. There was no pride in his voice, only a strange sadness. Lyra felt a deep respect for him. "You were a hero," she said softly. "Your name is taught in history. You helped save many worlds." Raoul placed the picture on her desk. "A hero," he repeated. "I was just a soldier doing his duty." His voice carried a weight that Lyra could feel in her chest. The storm outside began to fade, and the soft light of the moons returned. The energy in the air disappeared, leaving only calm silence between them. Lyra gathered her courage and asked, "What will you do now?" Raoul looked out the window again. "I do not know," he admitted. "My time is gone. My world is gone. Everything I knew is dust." He looked back at her, his eyes gentle but firm. "But maybe there is still something left for me to do." Lyra nodded, unsure what else to say. She offered him food and water, but he refused at first. His mind was still full of questions. Later, as the night grew darker, he finally sat down and accepted a small meal. He asked her about Riva, about the people, and about what happened after humans vanished. Lyra told him everything she knew, how the last human colonies merged with alien societies, how peace slowly replaced war, and how humans became symbols of courage and sacrifice. As she spoke, Raoul listened silently. His face remained calm, but inside his heart was heavy. He was proud to know his people had inspired peace, yet he felt lost in a world that no longer needed soldiers. When Lyra finished, he gave a small smile. "You speak of peace as if it is easy," he said softly. "But peace is the hardest thing to build. It takes more courage than war." Lyra looked at him with admiration. "Then maybe you can teach us," she said. "Not how to fight, but how to stay brave." Raoul thought about her words for a long time. Finally, he nodded. "Perhaps that is my new mission," he said. The night ended with calm silence. Raoul sat near the window, staring at the moons, while Lyra watched him from her bed. She could hardly believe that the man who once existed only in her picture was now sitting in her room. The storm had brought him from the past, carrying the spirit of humanity's courage into a peaceful future as sleep took her. Lyra whispered one last thing. "Welcome home, Raoul." And for the first time in centuries, the heroic human soldier rested peacefully under a sky he had never seen before. The next morning came quietly. The twin suns rose above the shining towers of Arvona City, spreading warm light through the silver clouds. Lyra woke early, her heart still full of disbelief. For a moment she thought everything that happened last night was a dream. But when she turned her head, she saw him sitting near the window. Raoul, the human soldier, was awake. Watching the sunrise in silence, his armor looked old and worn, but the man inside it still seemed strong. The early light touched the metal plates of his armor, revealing marks of battle and small burned lines where energy weapons once struck. His helmet rested on her desk beside the fallen picture frame. Lyra rubbed her eyes and stood up carefully, afraid that if she made too much noise, he might disappear. Raoul turned his head slightly and gave a small nod. "You are awake," he said in a calm voice. Lyra nodded too. "Yes, I was not sure you were real until now," He smiled faintly. I wish I could say I was sure myself. His tone was light, but there was a deep sadness behind it. He looked out again at the bright city. Your world is peaceful. It feels strange. Lyra stepped closer and handed him a cup of water. He took it with a quiet thank you. His hands were steady, yet there was tension in them, like someone who had spent years holding a weapon. Do you remember anything after the explosion? She asked softly. Raoul thought for a moment, his eyes distant. I remember light. The core was collapsing. I ordered my team to fall back. Then there was silence. I thought that was the end. Lyra listened carefully, her eyes full of wonder. The energy must have pulled you through the wormhole, she said. That storm last night, it might have reopened the same path for a moment. It brought you here. Raoul nodded slowly. Time does strange things. I have seen worlds fall apart in seconds. Maybe this was meant to happen. He stood and looked around the room again. His movements were slow, as if he was still adjusting to the new air and gravity. He touched the wall screen, watching how it responded to his hand with soft blue light. You live in comfort, he said. We fought to give future generations peace like this. I am glad to see it exists. Lyra smiled. Yes, but most people have forgotten how much it cost. Raoul looked at her. Then maybe it is time to remind them. She showed him around her house. The rooms were filled with glowing panels, floating drones, and clean white furniture. Raoul seemed both amazed and uneasy. When he saw a small cleaning robot move on the floor, he stepped back slightly, his soldier instincts reacting. Lyra laughed softly and explained it was harmless. He nodded, but did not relax fully. The soldier inside him could not turn off so icily. Later, she prepared food for him. He looked at the plate of small blue fruits and bread made from star grain. It smells different, he said, curious. Lyra sat across from him. We grow most of our food from lab seeds now. Real farming is rare. Raoul tasted a piece slowly. It is not bad, he said with a small smile, but nothing like the rations I used to eat. Lyra laughed again, feeling a little more comfortable. Rations. Were they bad? He chuckled. Very bad. But when you are hungry, anything tastes good. The warmth in his tone made her feel at ease. For the first time, he seemed less like a picture from history and more like a real person. After breakfast, Lyra offered to take him outside, but Raoul hesitated. Are you sure it is safe? He asked. If people see me like this, it might cause trouble. Lyra thought for a moment and then gave him a long cloak to cover his armor. You will look like a traveler, she said. No one will notice. When they stepped outside, the air was fresh and filled with soft sounds of hovercrafts passing high above. The streets were wide and full of beings from many worlds. Tall blue-skinned traders, silver-eyed scholars, and small children with floating toys. Everyone moved calmly, their faces peaceful. Raoul looked around with quiet amazement. So many species, he said. In my time, we were still learning to live side by side. This is what we fought for. They walked through the central district where a tall statue stood surrounded by glowing trees. The statue was of a human soldier holding a banner of unity. Lyra stopped and pointed to it. That was built in honor of your people, she said proudly. Raoul stepped closer and touched the base of the statue. His fingers brushed over the carved names of ancient heroes. His own name was among them. He froze for a moment. Raoul Venn, he read softly. Lyra nodded. You were one of the leaders in the final stand at the Great Void War. They say your sacrifice helped close the machine wormhole. Raoul stared at his name, struggling to understand. So that is how they remember me, he said. Dead. Lyra looked at him gently. You are not just dead. You became a symbol. Raoul smiled faintly. A symbol cannot bleed. A symbol cannot feel pain. But it is good that they learned something from it. A small group of children passed by, laughing and pointing at the statue. One of them looked up at Raoul's face and whispered, You look just like him. Lyra quickly guided Raoul away before more people noticed. He did not mind. Let them think it is a coincidence, he said. Maybe that is better for now. They returned home later in the afternoon. Raoul seemed thoughtful, his eyes distant, as if he were remembering the past. Lyra offered him a place to rest, but he stood by the window again, watching the ships move in the sky. "Do you miss your time?" she asked quietly. Raoul nodded. "Yes, I miss my comrades. I miss the noise of the camp, the sound of armor plates, the radio chatter, but I do not miss the war itself." He turned to her. "Tell me, Lyra, how do people live now? What do they believe in?" Lyra thought for a moment. "Most people believe in peace, progress, and knowledge. We study history, but we do not fight anymore. Our defense units are small. We rely on machines for most work. Many believe war will never return." Raul's face grew serious. "War always returns. Not because people want it, but because someone, somewhere, forgets why peace matters. That is how it begins again." His words were heavy, and Lyra felt a chill, even though the room was warm. She realized that Raoul carried wisdom that few in her age could understand. That evening, Lyra showed him the city's history archives through her wall screen. Images and recordings floated in the air, showing the Great Void War, the fall of the machines, and the unity of species after the conflict. Raoul watched every image with deep attention. When he saw old human soldiers fighting side by side with alien allies, his eyes softened. "We gave everything for this," he said, "and it was worth it." As they scrolled through more records, Lyra noticed that many details about the war were unclear or simplified. "Some of the data is missing," she said. "Over the centuries, records were lost." Raoul nodded slowly. History forgets what it wants to forget. But the truth always lives in the hearts of those who still care. Before night came, Lyra asked him if he wanted to contact the Planetary Council. "They would be honored to meet you," she said. Raoul shook his head firmly. "No, not yet. They would treat me like a relic, not a person. I need time to understand this world first." So he stayed hidden in her home. Lyra helped him study the new language forms, the changes in technology, and the history of the last 1,000 years. Raoul learned quickly, though sometimes he grew frustrated. "Your devices are strange," he said one night while trying to control a small data pad. "They do everything for you. In my time, we had to think before we acted." Lyra laughed softly. "We still think, just in different ways." As days passed, Raoul began to adjust. He repaired small machines around her house, using simple logic and tools. He even helped fix a broken power cell that Lyra had been struggling with for months. "Some things never change," he said with a smile. "Machines always break when you need them most." Lyra was impressed. "You learned fast," she said. "Old soldiers never forget," he replied. But inside, Raoul often felt restless. At night, he would look at the stars and think about the battles he had fought, the friends he had lost, and the world he had left behind. He felt like a shadow in a time that no longer needed him. Lyra noticed his silence, but did not press him with questions. She knew he was fighting an inner battle that no one could see. One night, as they sat together near the window, Lyra asked, "Do you think you were meant to come here?" Raoul looked at her, then at the sky. "Maybe, or maybe it was just chance. But if fate wanted me here, there must be a reason," Lyra smiled. "Maybe the reason is to remind us why peace is precious." Raoul looked at her and nodded slowly. "Then I will do what I can, even if I am only one man out of time." The city lights reflected in his eyes as he spoke. The quiet hum of distant ships filled the night. Lyra realized that the man who once belonged to history was now part of her world. He was no longer just a picture on her wall. He was real, breathing, and still carrying the heart of humanity's courage. As the night deepened, Raoul stood and said, "Thank you for helping me." Lyra smiled gently. "I should be thanking you. You saved our worlds long ago." He shook his head. "That was the past. Now we must protect the future." Lyra looked at him in silence, feeling a strange sense of hope. She did not know what destiny had brought him here, but she was sure that the story of the human soldier was far from over. Outside, the twin moons shone bright over the peaceful city. Unaware that one of humanity's lost heroes had returned to walk among them once more. Days passed, and Raoul slowly learned about the new world around him. Planet Riva was bright, peaceful, and full of life. Every morning he woke up to the sound of airships flying over the city and children laughing on the floating walkways. The streets were filled with people of all shapes and colors, from small, insect-like traders to tall, glowing scholars who spoke through light patterns instead of words. No one carried weapons. There were no guards, no soldiers, and no fear. It was a world that had forgotten war. Lyra helped Roel blend in. She taught him the new language symbols, how to use modern tools, and how to move through the city without drawing attention. He learned quickly, though he still preferred his old ways. When Lyra offered him a sleek new communicator, he refused and kept his broken military wrist device. "Old habits die hard," he said with a small smile. Each day, Lyra took Raoul to new places to show him how much the galaxy had changed. They visited the sky gardens, where plants floated on energy fields. They went to the learning towers, where knowledge from thousands of worlds was stored in light crystals. Raoul was amazed by the progress, but also troubled. He saw that people lived in comfort, yet their hearts seemed distant from the struggles that built their peace. One day, they visited the Museum of the Old Sky. It was a huge building made of white stone and glowing glass. Inside were relics from the time of humans and the Great Void War. There were old helmets, rifles, and fragments of warships displayed in shining cases. People walked through the halls with quiet curiosity, not sadness or pride, only calm interest. To them, war was just history, a story to be studied, not remembered with emotion. Lyra led Raoul through the hallways. When they reached the central chamber, she stopped in front of a giant hologram. It showed the moment the last human fleet closed the wormhole that had almost destroyed the galaxy. The hologram replayed the final signal sent by the Human Defense Corps. The message said, "For the peace of tomorrow, we stand today." Raoul felt a lump in his throat. He remembered saying those very words before the final battle. That message was his order. His voice, his command, now only an echo in history. Lyra looked at him and whispered, "That was you." "Ow!" Well nodded slowly. "It was all we could do." His voice was quiet and heavy. He stared at the hologram, watching his younger self lead soldiers into light. To the people of this time, it was a story of victory. To him, it was the memory of sacrifice. He could still see the faces of his friends, the ones who never came back. A young guide passed by and noticed Raoul's eyes fixed on the hologram. "You look moved," the guide said kindly. "The bravery of humans is always inspiring." Raoul gave a polite smile. Yes, they were brave. Did not say more. Lyra could feel the emotion behind his calm expression. When they left the museum, she said softly, "You were their leader, yet no one here knows the real you." Raoul looked up at the sky. That is the way of time. Heroes fade, peace remains. That is enough. But deep inside, he wondered if peace built on forgetting could last. The more he saw of this world, the more he felt its quiet weakness. The people of Riva had lost the instinct to defend themselves. They trusted technology and peace treaties more than courage or strength. Raoul respected their way of life, but he also sensed how fragile it was at night. Raoul often sat near the window of Lyra's home watching the stars. He could identify the constellations that humans once mapped. Some stars had gone dim, others were new. He remembered the colonies that once existed on those worlds, wondering if any traces of humanity still lived there. Sometimes Lyra joined him, bringing 2 cups of tea. She would ask him questions about the old times. He would answer with simple honesty. She once asked, "Were you afraid during the war?" Raoul took a long breath before answering. "Always. Every soldier is afraid. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what must be done despite it." Lyra listened closely, trying to imagine what fear felt like in a world that had none. "We cannot even understand that now," she said quietly. "We do not have wars anymore." Raoul looked at her with a serious gaze. "Then hope that you never have to learn." Lyra worked as a researcher for the Knowledge Council, and soon she began documenting her talks with Raoul. She believed his presence could teach people something forgotten. Raoul did not mind. "If my words can help," he said, "then let them be recorded." But he asked her not to reveal who he really was. If they knew, they would not see me as a man, he said. They would see only the legend, Lyra agreed. She kept his secret, calling him simply the visitor in her notes. As weeks passed, Raoul began to help her in small ways. When a power grid in their district failed, he repaired it faster than the technicians could. When a drone malfunctioned, he adjusted its circuits by hand. Lyra was amazed by his skill. "You fix things by instinct," she said. Raoul smiled. "When you grow up around machines that can kill you if you make one mistake, you learn quickly." His humor made her laugh. But his words also reminded her of how different his world had been. One evening, Lyra invited Raoul to visit the learning circle where students gathered to discuss ideas. She wanted him to see how the younger generation thought. The hall was filled with bright lights and young minds eager to speak about peace, science, and unity. When Raoul entered, a few students greeted him politely, thinking he was just another traveler from an old colony. They began to talk about the future of civilization and how conflict was now impossible thanks to technology. A young speaker stood and said proudly, "War is a mistake of primitive minds. With our knowledge, we have evolved beyond it." Raoul listened quietly, then raised his hand. The students looked at him curiously. "May I speak?" he asked. The leader nodded. Raoul stood slowly and faced the group. "War is not only born from ignorance," he said. "It is born from fear, from hunger, from pride, and from forgetting what others suffered before. You may think you have ended it, but if you forget why peace was needed, you may call it back without meaning to." The hall grew quiet. The students stared at him, unsure how to respond. Raoul continued, his voice steady. "Peace is not a treasure you keep locked away. It is something you guard every day with wisdom and courage. If you believe machines or laws alone can protect it, then you have already begun to lose it." When he finished, the room was silent. Then one of the older scholars clapped softly, followed by others. Lyra watched with pride. Raoul had spoken not as a soldier but as a teacher. After the gathering, some students came to him with questions. They wanted to know about human discipline, teamwork, and what courage meant in practice. Raoul answered with patience. Lyra saw how their eyes shone with interest. For the first time, the lessons of humanity sounded alive again. As they walked home, she said, "You changed their way of thinking tonight." Raoul shook his head. "I only reminded them that peace is not free." The next day, the city's local news networks began to talk about a mysterious traveler who spoke with the wisdom of an old soldier. Lyra was worried, but Raoul was calm. "Let them wonder," he said. "The message is what matters, not the man." Still, he stayed inside more often to avoid attention. During this time, he began to feel something he had not felt for many years: purpose. He repaired things, helped Lyra with her work, and shared his knowledge about leadership and resilience. He found himself teaching the same values that once guided his soldiers. Lyra noticed how his presence lifted people's spirits. Neighbors who used to ignore each other now talked more. Children waved when they saw him walking near the garden. His quiet strength seemed to awaken something forgotten in them, but not everyone was happy. The Council of Harmony, which ruled Reva, began to worry about the growing talk of the visitor. They feared that stories of old wars might disturb the peace. Lyra received a message from her superior one morning. It said that spreading stories about ancient violence was discouraged. She felt torn. Raoul had brought wisdom, not trouble, yet the council saw him as a threat. When she told Raoul, he only smiled sadly. "Peaceful worlds fear even the memory of war," he said. "It is natural. But you must not let them erase the truth." Lyra promised she would not. She continued her notes secretly, hiding them under false research files. Raoul helped her encrypt the data, using old military codes no one in this time could break. That night, as they looked at the stars again, Lyra said softly, "You gave so much for peace. Yet even now, you have to protect it in another way." Raoul nodded. Peace must always be defended. Not with weapons, but with memory. Once people forget the cost, the danger returns. Outside, a gentle wind moved across the city. The moons reflected in the glass towers like silver coins in water. Lyra turned to Raoul and said, "I think the world needs you again. Not as a soldier, but as a reminder." Raoul looked thoughtful. "Maybe that is why I am here. The storm did not bring me by accident." He placed his hand against the window, gazing at the stars where his old comrades once fought. "I wish they could see this world," he said quietly. "They would be proud." Lyra nodded, her eyes soft. "And they would be proud of you too." The night passed in peaceful silence. But somewhere beyond the sky, far beyond the reach of Riva's sensors, a faint mechanical signal pulsed through the void. It came from deep space, from a source thought to be dead for centuries. The machines that humanity had once defeated were stirring again. Raoul had grown used to the quiet rhythm of life on Riva. Every morning he woke with the sunlight spilling over the towers of Arvona City. Children played along the floating pathways, and traders moved calmly, their voices full of laughter. He had even started to enjoy the small routines, fixing minor machines, teaching students about courage, and sharing stories with Lyra about his past. Peace was comforting, but he knew it could not last forever. He had seen too many worlds fall to forget that truth. It began quietly at first. A series of strange energy signals appeared on Riva's outer sensors. They were weak, scattered, and inconsistent. Scientists at the planetary observatory initially ignored them, thinking they were minor fluctuations from distant stars. But Raoul felt a familiar tension in his chest the moment he saw the reports. He had fought for years against energy-based machines, and these signals carried the same pattern. It was the pulse of a machine intelligence awakening. That evening, Raoul explained the danger to Lyra. "This world has grown soft," he said. "People rely on technology and peace, but they have forgotten the instinct to defend themselves. These signals are the beginning. If the threat reaches the surface, they will not know what to do." Lyra listened carefully, her green eyes wide with concern. "What can we do?" she asked. Raoul's gaze hardened. "We prepare. We organize. Even one man can guide them if he knows how to lead." Over the next few days, Raoul and Lyra worked in secrecy. He trained a small group of volunteers who wanted to help defend their planet. Most had never touched a weapon before, but Raoul taught them discipline, observation, and strategy. He explained simple tactics that humans had used centuries ago, adapted for the peaceful tools of Reva. Shields, energy nets, and defense drones were their weapons now, but the principles remained the same: timing, patience, and courage. The people of Riva watched with curiosity. Some doubted that anyone from the past could teach them anything useful. Others were intrigued. Raoul moved calmly among them, adjusting their formations, showing them how to work as a team. Lyra translated his instructions for those who did not understand the old human language. Slowly, the volunteers grew more confident. Raoul's presence had awakened something forgotten: the courage to act, not just rely on comfort. Then the first attack came. From beyond the edge of Riva's system, a small fleet of ancient machines emerged. They were remnants of the forces that humanity had fought centuries ago. Their metallic bodies reflected the light of the twin suns, and their weapons fired destructive energy pulses. Panic spread quickly in the cities. People had never seen anything like this. The air filled with alarms, and citizens ran to safety. The machines advanced without warning, scanning for life forms to destroy. Raoul's heart tightened, but his expression stayed calm. "This is exactly why I came here," he said. Lyra stood beside him. "We need to warn the council," she said. He shook his head. "The council will freeze in fear. They do not know how to fight. We have no time to wait for them to decide." He activated the coms to reach the volunteers he had trained. "Gather the units. Defend the main city gates. Remember what I taught you." People followed Raoul's orders with surprising speed. Even those who had never held a weapon moved into position. Shields activated, drones hovered into defensive patterns, and energy nets formed protective walls over the streets. Raoul walked among them, adjusting placements and giving instructions. Lyra translated for those who did not speak his language. Every movement he made carried authority and confidence. Even in the midst of chaos, Raoul's calm presence inspired courage. The first wave of machines struck. They fired beams that shattered energy shields and tore through metal. Citizens panicked, but the volunteers held their positions. Raoul led a group to intercept the attackers. Using tactics from centuries ago, he flanked the machines, guiding his small team with precise commands. They dodged beams, set traps, and disabled several of the enemy units. The streets echoed with the hum of energy and the shouts of defenders. Lyra watched in awe. The man in the picture on her wall was now alive, fighting to protect her home. Hours passed and the machines adapted. They moved faster and coordinated their attacks. Raoul realized the threat was larger than anticipated. "We need more control," he told Lyra. They set up a command station in her home, connecting with the city's main network. Raoul used the old strategies he knew, combining modern technology with tactical knowledge from the past. He guided the volunteers in real time, moving them like pieces on a chessboard. Every decision was critical. One mistake could cost lives. During a pause in the battle, Raoul looked at Lyra. "Are the civilians safe?" he asked. She nodded. "They are in shelters. The drones are protecting them." He exhaled slowly. "Good, they must be safe. Our goal is to protect life, not to destroy everything we face." His words carried wisdom and discipline. Lyra realized that he had been trained to act even under pressure. It's a skill that now saved countless people. Night fell and the battle continued under the glow of twin moons. Raoul moved through the city streets, rallying defenders and repairing malfunctioning shields. Each time a machine fell, the volunteers cheered, but they knew the fight was far from over. Raoul's face was focused, his mind calculating the next steps. Lyra stayed close, relaying information and helping him make rapid decisions. They worked as a single team, combining human experience and Riva's advanced technology the next morning. Raoul and the volunteers noticed that the machines had begun to retreat. It was not victory, but a temporary pause. Raoul studied the enemy's formation. "They are testing our defenses," he said. "They will return stronger. We must be ready." Lyra nodded. "We can reinforce the shields and improve the drones." Raoul agreed. "Yes, but the most important thing is courage. Technology alone will not win this fight. People must act." Raoul then gathered all the volunteers and spoke to them directly. His voice carried through the city squares. "I am not from your time, but I know what it means to face fear. These machines will challenge you. They will test your will. But remember this, you are not alone. Work together. Protect each other. Stand for what is right, even if the world seems to fall around you." The volunteers listened intently, feeling strength rise within them. Lyra saw their determination grow as Raoul's words sank in. Over the next several days, Raoul continued to lead the defense. He trained volunteers to anticipate attacks, set traps, and use their environment strategically. He walked among them, offering advice, encouragement, and discipline. Lyra realized that Raoul had become more than a soldier. He was a teacher, a leader, and a symbol of courage reborn. The city that had once feared even shadows now moved with confidence. Then, on the fourth day, the main force of the machines arrived. They were enormous, with reinforced armor and heavy weapons. The citizens of Riva watched from shelters, fearing the worst. Raoul did not falter. He coordinated the defense, using every tactic he knew. The volunteers moved with precision, placing shields and traps exactly where he instructed. Drones formed protective barriers, while energy nets created deadly zones for the enemy. Raoul's knowledge of old warfare combined with new technology made them a formidable force. The battle was long and intense. Machines fired beams that shattered buildings, but the volunteers held firm. Raoul moved through the chaos, guiding teams, rescuing civilians trapped in the streets, and disabling enemy units when he could. Lyra stood near him, keeping communications open and relaying information to ensure the city remained safe. Together, they fought not as humans and aliens, but as a single united force. By the fifth day, the machines had lost many units, and their command system began to fail. Raoul seized the moment. He directed a coordinated strike that destroyed the core of the invading force. The remaining machines retreated into deep space, leaving Riva's cities intact. The citizens emerged from their shelters, cheering and embracing the volunteers who had defended them. Raoul looked over the city, his face calm but tired. The battle was over, but its memory would remain in the aftermath. The people of Reva began to understand the true value of courage and leadership. Raoul did not seek recognition. He quietly helped repair buildings, restore shields, and train more volunteers. Lyra recorded every lesson he taught, knowing that these words might be needed again in the future. Raoul had shown them that peace was not automatic. It had to be defended with wisdom, courage, and teamwork. That night, as the moons rose over the city, Raoul and Lyra stood on the balcony of her home. The city was quiet, but the air carried the faint hum of repaired drones and energy shields. Lyra looked at him and said softly, "You saved us." Raoul shook his head. "No, you saved yourselves. I only reminded you how to be brave." Lyra smiled, understanding the depth of his words. He was a hero, but not just in battle. He was a hero because he had taught courage to a world that had forgotten it, far beyond Reva. The remains of the machine force drifted in space. Their systems were damaged, but the signal of life and intelligence remained. Raoul knew that they might return, and he was prepared. He had faced darkness before and would do so again. But for now, Reva was safe. And its people had learned something far more important than any. Technology, bravery, and unity could defend even the strongest threat. And as Raoul stood under the twin moons, the days after the first battle were calm, but Raoul knew it would not last. The remnants of the machine fleet had vanished into deep space, but their intelligence was still active. They had learned, adapted, and would return stronger. Raoul watched the skies from Lyra's balcony each night, the twin moons casting silver light over the city. He could sense the quiet before a storm, the moment when peace itself could be threatened. He had fought many battles before, but this time, the people he guided were not trained warriors. They were volunteers, civilians, students, and dreamers. Their courage had to grow fast. Lyra had become his constant companion and assistant. She organized training drills, helped him repair energy shields, translated his old human tactical strategies into Riva's technology. Her green eyes reflected determination, and her quiet strength encouraged Raoul. "Do you think they are ready?" she asked one evening as they watched drones glide across the horizon. Raoul's jaw was set. "They are ready to try. That is all anyone can ask. The rest is courage." The first sign of the return came in the early hours. Red glows appeared on Riva's orbit sensors, and strange energy pulses pulsed across the outer system. The council alerted the citizens, but panic spread quickly. Children cried, and many sought shelter. Raoul moved calmly. He did not speak fear, only orders. Everyone in position, shields active, drones ready. Remember what I taught you. We protect life first. The volunteers moved swiftly. Shields raised, drones flew into protective formations, and emergency energy nets extended across the city streets. Raoul walked among the defenders, checking positions and encouraging them. Each time a person faltered, he guided them patiently. "Do not fear what you see," he said. "Fear is the enemy. Action is the answer. Trust each other and you will not fall." Lyra followed, translating his words for everyone in the city. Together, they were a single force. The machines struck with power unmatched. Massive metallic bodies blazed across the skies, firing energy beams that tore through the outskirts of the city. Alarms blared and buildings shook. Citizens who were not in shelters watched in terror, but Raoul remained calm. "Do not run," he shouted to the volunteers. "Hold your ground. Move as one." He led a squad into the streets, guiding them to strategic positions where shields would last longest and traps could be set. Hours passed. The machines advanced steadily, but Raoul's tactics worked. He divided his small army into units that could respond quickly to attacks. He placed energy nets where machines could not pass, used drones to draw fire, and instructed volunteers to act as decoys when necessary. Each move reminded the citizens of courage, teamwork, and unity. Lyra marveled at how his experience guided them, turning ordinary people into defenders who acted with precision. During the battle, Raoul noticed a group of students trapped under a collapsing structure. Without hesitation, he moved toward them. Using his strength and training, he lifted debris and guided them to safety. The students looked at him with awe, realizing that this was the man from the stories, the hero of history, alive in their time. "Thank you, sir," one whispered. Raoul only nodded, his eyes scanning for the next threat. Every action was deliberate, every movement measured to save lives. As the day progressed, the machines adapted. They attacked in swarms, coordinating in ways Raoul had not expected. He studied their patterns and instructed his volunteers to anticipate them. "The enemy learns," he said calmly. "We must learn faster. Trust your instincts and do not hesitate." Lyra repeated his instructions across the city, and slowly the defenders became a synchronized force. Shields, traps, drones, and human courage worked together like a single living organism. Finally, Raoul saw an opportunity. The central command unit of the machine fleet was exposed as they advanced too far. He gathered the strongest volunteers and led a focused strike. Using energy nets, shield formations, and quick tactical maneuvers, they disabled the machine core. Explosions lit the sky, but Raoul's team avoided major casualties. The machines faltered, then retreated into the depths of space. The city was saved, but Raoul knew this was only temporary. The lessons of courage had been learned, but vigilance would always be needed. The citizens emerged from shelters slowly. Some wept with relief, others hugged friends and neighbors. The volunteers who had fought alongside Raoul were exhausted but proud. They had defended their world. Raoul walked among them quietly, ensuring everyone was safe. Lyra joined him, her hand brushing his arm. "You saved everyone," she said softly. Raoul shook his head. "No, they saved themselves. I only showed them how." After the battle, the city council officially recognized the efforts of the defenders, but when they asked to meet Raoul in public ceremonies, he refused. "I am not a hero to be celebrated," he said. "I am here to teach courage, not to collect honors. The lesson is more important than the man." Lyra smiled. She understood that Raoul's mission had never been fame. It was the revival of bravery, the living example of human courage. In the days that followed, Raoul helped rebuild the city. He guided repairs of buildings, realigned energy grids, and worked with Lyra to strengthen the drones and shields. The citizens of Reva began to train themselves, learning from his guidance. They practiced teamwork, observed strategies, and learned to trust their instincts. For the first time in generations, they felt capable of defending their home. Raoul watched with quiet satisfaction. The people he had guided were no longer afraid. They had learned to act, and in that, they became heroes of their own. One evening, after the skies had cleared and the city lights reflected softly on the towers, Raoul and Lyra stood on the balcony of her home. The twin moons glowed above them, silver and calm. Lyra looked at him and said, "You changed our world. The people will never forget this." Raoul's face was serious, but a small smile appeared. "Perhaps. But the world did not need me. It only needed to remember how to be brave. I was only here to remind them." Lyra took his hand and led him to the wall where the picture of him once hung. She had cleaned and repaired it, now adding a new frame. "This is for you," she said. Raoul studied the image carefully, seeing his younger self. But now he understood that the real person was not in the past. He was alive here, in this moment, guiding the world he had never known. "Thank you," he said softly. "This is more than any medal or honor could be." That night, the city slept peacefully. Raoul stood by the window, looking at the stars. Somewhere in deep space, the remnants of the machine fleet had fled, but he knew they were not destroyed. He thought of the humans he had fought with long ago, their courage and their sacrifice. "They would be proud," he whispered. Lyra stood beside him, placing her hand on his shoulder. and we are proud of you." Word of the battle spread across Riva. Citizens spoke of the brave volunteers and the mysterious visitor who had guided them. Even children told stories of the man with the old armor who taught them how to be brave. Raoul remained humble, but he realized that legends do not need to be in history books. They live in the hearts of people who act with courage, who defend life, and who choose hope in the darkest hours. In the days that followed, Raoul continued to train and guide the people of Reva. He repaired machines, instructed volunteers, and advised the council in secret. He helped create systems to warn of dangers and plans for emergencies. The city became stronger, not just because of technology, but because its people had learned to act with courage. Raoul had turned their fear into strength, their inexperience into skill. He had done more than defend a city. He had revived hope. One evening, Lyra brought him to the roof of her home, where the air was cool and the stars were bright. "Do you feel at home here?" she asked. Raoul looked at the horizon, at the peaceful city, and then at her. "I feel needed," he said. "And perhaps that is enough for me," Lyra smiled. "You are not just needed. You are remembered, and you are alive. That is a rare gift." Raoul's eyes turned to the sky. Somewhere far beyond Reva, he could sense the emptiness of space, but he no longer feared it. He had found a purpose. Even in a world without war, a hero could still protect, guide, and inspire. And that, he realized, was the true strength of humanity. The next morning, Lyra added a new picture to her wall. It was not just a photo from history, but one she had taken herself, Raoul, standing tall, smiling faintly, with the city of Arvona behind him. She hung it carefully next to the old frame. Now the hero on her wall was no longer just a memory. He was real, living among them, guiding a world that had forgotten courage. The heroic human soldier who had once only existed in pictures and stories now walked among the people he had saved. A living legend, Raoul stood beside Lyra and looked at the picture. He nodded quietly. "The story is not over," he said. "Legends do not end. They continue wherever courage exists." Lyra smiled, feeling hope fill her heart. The city, the people, and the world had learned the lesson of bravery once again. And Raoul, the human soldier who had traveled through time, had become a part of it forever. Outside, the twin moons shone softly over Arvona city. The wind carried the quiet sounds of a world at peace, yet prepared. And Raoul, the hero, who had once been just a picture on a wall, now lived in every brave heart that stood to protect life, hope, and the future.